VRF Lite routing with physical interface. In this video, I'm going to talk about again VRF Lite and also VRF, and I am going to show you how you can create virtual networks with VRF Lite. As you see in this video, as you see in this scenario, we have again two routers, router 1 and router 2, and now I want to create two VRF in both of router 1 and router 2. After creating the VRF, I need to do some type of routing, for example, static routing in this scenario. And finally, we have two isolate virtual networks. The first virtual network is the network between VPC1 in VRFA, R1, R2, and also VPC3. And the second network is the VRFP, VPC2, R1, R2, and VPC4. Let me first explain the detail of the configuration. Look at here. Here in the, for example, previous video, we configured one router with two VRF, okay? Also, in this video, I want to configure another router again with two VRF. This is the router 1 or R1, okay? And this is the R2 router. In R2, also, I want to configure again two VRF, VRFA and VRFB. Okay, don't forget that you can configure another names for the VRFs in two routers because the name of the VRF is not important. For example, you can configure this VRF, VRFC or VRFD, but it's easier to use, for example, same VRF name for the same virtual network. Now, again, I want to use a VRFA to assign to serial 1, 0 and also VRFB to serial 1, 1. Okay, and then we should connect these two interfaces in these two links together, serial 10 of VRFA of R1 to the serial 10 of VRFA in R2, and also about the VRFB and serial 11 we should do same task. Okay, now we have two VRF here, VRFA and VRFB, and as you see, the traffic from the VRFA can be sent to the serial 10 and reach to serial 10 of the router 2. This interface again in the VRFA, and we have two virtual routers that is connected together. This is same as, for example, R1. Look at here, the physical structure is that, for example, R1 connected to R2. Okay, if you want to create two isolate physical network, you should use four routers. Router, for example, router A, okay, router B, and then router C, and finally router D. If you want to create, for example, two physical network, you should use four routers, router A, B, C, and D. But here we can use two routers to create two networks. How? With concept of VRF. It's so easy and also so interesting. Also, you know that, for example, we should have in the router A LAN interfaces, and also in router B LAN interfaces, and after that in router C, for example, and in the router D. And after configuring these interfaces, now we have connectivity between LAN of the router A. This is, for example, LAN 1 or L1. Okay, and this is the, for example, L2, LAN 2. Now we have two LAN and we have connectivity after configuring routing. Also, here we can configure L3, means LAN 3, and also here LAN 4. And now we have connectivity after configuring routing between LAN 3 and LAN 4. And also in the virtual network, this virtual network, again, I can configure, for example, two LAN interfaces in every virtual network. This is the one virtual network, and this is the second virtual network. For example, you can configure one interface in VRFA in the LAN site ETH00, okay, and also another interface ETH01 in VRFP, okay, and also the same can be configured in the, for example, R1 VRFA. This is R1's VRFA ETH0 or other interfaces, and also here in VRFP. Now we created two virtual network that logically are same as the, for example, two physical network. There is no difference between the virtual networks and physical networks in logic. Okay, you used only two router to creating two logical networks, and here at the top you used four routers to create two network. Let me to show you the detail. In the for example, top scenario, I used four routers to create two physical isolated networks. And in the bottom scenario, in the VRF scenario, I am using two routers to creating two physical networks. It has lower, for example, cost to creating this scenario, and you can use it, for example, when you want to isolate the networks in your company. For example, one of these networks